For all things football,
wow, you will not see a better goal.
BBC Sounds has got you covered.
These fans have gone absolutely wild.
More live Premier League football than anywhere else on 5 Live.
And there is the whistle, and a brand new season begins.
And the Football Daily podcast.
Everything football, every day.
For all the Premier League action and reaction, listen on BBC Sounds. BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, this is the Scottish Football Podcast, keeping you up to speed with everything you need to know about the national game. It's Friday the 30th of August. I'm Iona Ballantyne, and here's what's coming up today.
Rushling gets it back to Chen. No! That's the killer blow, you imagine. Low ball across, oh no! It's an own goal! It is an own goal and Copenhagen score!
We reflect on a disappointing night of European action for Hearts and Kilmarnock. And speaking of Europe...
Now it's McGinn! Now it's 1-0 Villa! They are having the time of their lives!
We've reaction to Celtic's Champions League exciting looking draw. And as if all that's not enough...
Bernardo forward for Celtic, up to the edge of the penalty area. Goes for goal, takes a deflection, Bullen, it's in! Aramina has scored for Celtic!
We've the small matter of the first Old Firm derby of the season to look forward to.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
Well, joining me on this very busy Friday, Gemma Fay, former Scotland goalkeeper, Joshua Barrie, editor of the Rangers Review, and Asim Rabbani from a Celtic State of Mind podcast. Guys, how are you all coping with all of the football news going on just now? I feel like there's a lot.
Yeah, I'll start because I seem the most phased out of the three of us. But it's been a long summer, Iona, so I think it's going to be a busy weekend. But this is why we do it, isn't it?
It is why we do it. Gemma, how are you coping with all the news?
I'm great. I'm a St Johnstone fan, so there's never much that happens that way.
We'll come to you about St Johnstone another time.
I just look on with envy, that's all.
I can imagine. And Asim, another very busy time for Celtic today too.
Yeah, it's been one of the quietest summers in terms of transfer activity. We've all been waiting for something to happen. And then yesterday we've got the excitement of the Champions League draw and the potential imminent arrival of 2 more signings. So yeah, when it rains it pours. It was a pretty overwhelming night, but a lot to be excited about, I guess, if you're a Celtic fan.
Oh, it certainly did. Thanks so much, you guys. Well, there's lots to discuss with Gemma, Joshua and Asim. But before all of that, let's quickly run through the latest Scottish football headlines. Hearts are out of the Europa League after losing 1-0 to Victoria Pilsen at Tynecastle, 2-0 on aggregate. They'll now drop into Conference League. Kilmarnock's European adventure came to an end with a 1-1 draw at Rugby Park, seeing them lose out to FC Copenhagen 3-1 on aggregate in Conference League qualifying. Celtic will face Aston Villa and Borussia Dortmund as part of the 8 games they're guaranteed in this season's Champions League campaign. Well, Brendan Rodgers' side could also be about to break their transfer record as they've agreed a deal to sign 20-year-old Belgian midfielder Arne Engels from German side Augsburg. And across Glasgow, reports suggest that Todd Cantwell and Scott Wright could be on the verge of moves away from Rangers, with Blackburn and Birmingham their respective potential destinations. And before we move on, let me just remind you that we'll have a transfer window bonus episode out first thing on Saturday morning that will detail all the deadline-defying drama and deals that happened between now and 11:30 tonight. So let's start at Tynecastle. Gemma, how disappointing a result and performance actually was that for Hearts?
I think it's a hugely disappointing result based on the fact that I think it was a winnable game. It was a winnable tie. They had a real opportunity there. Unfortunately for Hearts fans, I think it's a somewhat predictable performance based on what we've seen so far. Lack of width, lack of pace, the change of formation mid-game, the on the bench of your Spittle and that's just somewhat confusing, I think, probably to the Hearts fans about what they're seeing based on they have a good squad there. They're just lacking identity. They had an opportunity to really engage the fan base at Tynecastle, get that 12th man in the park, and they were just left wanting. If it wasn't for some last-ditch defending by Taylor and some big saves by Craig Gordon, they could have gone in that first half down, and it could have been a lot worse because there just wasn't anything there. We saw changes come in the second half with the introduction of Oda, and as soon as the changes happen, you all automatically see a different looking Hearts. You see a different balance. There was a midfield to be found, and you just scratching your head as to why that wasn't the way that they started the game. They have a fallback. They are still in Europe. They are in the Conference League. But if I'm a Hearts fan, I'm looking at my squad. I'm looking at what we did last year, and I'm looking at what I'm seeing now. I'm bitterly disappointed, and I'm not really understanding how it can all just be down to the fact that Shanklin's not scoring goals. That can't be the reason. You can't rely on one person. And I think that there's a bit of work to be done there, both domestically and in Europe moving forward, to get Hearts to a recognisable position of what they were last year.
Why do you think they're lacking that identity just now? What do you see is going wrong there at the moment?
I've been watching Hearts a bit this season, and I've been listening to a lot of the commentary and the punditry that's going around. And I like to do that because I like to understand what other people are saying and seeing whether or not I see the same thing. And I do see the same thing, which is the word that's being used is a lack of connection. If you were to take a snapshot of times last night, and you could probably take a snapshot of that image and then replay it for different games this season, I can't see a centre midfield. I can't see where that passes. You change from a 3 to a 4. It seems they're more settled at a 4 at the back. You try to play with inverted wingers, but they're just not getting anywhere. So when you have a disconnect between the back line and the front line, and you don't have that kind of pivot in the middle that's playing that balls and connecting the lines, you end up with a back to front game. When you end up with a back to front game, when you don't have your star striker that could make goals out of nothing, and you don't really have a lot of pace up there, like I like Boyce, but he's not the paciest guy, and then you have no support coming off him. Vargas did his best, but at times you could see last night he was driving, he was taking players on. At one point, it was him versus 4 players. Where's the support? In terms of the structure of the team, they have the players. I think that Hearts have the players. I think they did pretty well in terms of the players that they brought in to create more opportunities in attacking third. They have the ability to create pace, and they have the ability to create width. And for some reason, Naismith feels that rotation of formation and personnel is the right way to go. And maybe that is the right way to go, and he's seeing something different in training, and he's just waiting for it to click. And maybe sometimes it's just one player doing something different that makes it all click. Maybe that's what he's waiting for. My opinion would be I think we've seen a formation that works for them. I think we've seen a formation where they have more possession. I think we've seen a formation where they can be more threatening. Go with that formation for a while. Go with those players for a while, and let's see if you can build the connection within the team and the consistency within the team. Because if you're playing with a different centre half or a different midfield or a different striker week in, week out, building those relationships becomes really, really difficult. Really, really difficult. And I don't think that Hearts have they don't have the quality of player that can just step in and make that happen. They need that rhythm and consistency.
Well, that's the thing, as you say, Hearts drop into the Conference League. Kilmarnock, though, knocked out of there last night. I mean, disappointing for them. They did put up a good fight against a good Copenhagen side, and at one point you did kind of think they could be back in the game, especially when they were 1-0 ahead on the night. But do you think Derek McInnes will be relieved that they can now focus on the Premiership in some ways?
I don't think Derek McInnes is a man that's relieved he's out of Europe. It's not the kind of coach he is. I think that and I listened to his post-match interview last night. He was immensely proud, and it kind of gave me a little bit of goosebumps as well, because you can hear in his voice how connected he is with that club. And Derek McInnes is the kind of coach that, like, if you say, it's never been done, like, he's the kind of coach, well, we'll be the first ones to do it. And to have a coach that isn't as inspiring as that in a dressing room is really, it's a huge thing. And the words that he used last night were immensely proud of this club, immensely proud, and they should be immensely proud, because look, they've drawn at home to a club that beat Man U, that drew with Bayern Munich. Like, that's pretty big feat. The challenge for them now is see that grit, determination, the high press. That's what his team does. Take that into your league form. Now that I'm going to use the word distraction. It's not the right word, but it's 6:45 in the morning. I ain't got another one for you, Iona. But now that is, it's not a thing on your shoulder anymore, and you're not doing the 2 games a week with travel in between. You can take that energy and that focus and apply it to the league situation now. So they're essentially starting their league late, right? Their league starts now, and now we should see, I think, in the league, the Kilmarnock that we probably saw last year, that had the high energy, that had the high press, versus the Kilmarnock where we've seen a tired Kilmarnock recently in that league.
Well, that's the thing. Back to league business for both Hearts and Kilmarnock at the weekend. We know that both could really do with a result on Sunday. If we move on, but stick with European competition for now, the Champions League draw has been made. And in the revamped competition, Celtic will have home matches with Leipzig, Young Boys, Slovan Bratislava and Club Brugge, and will travel to take on Borussia Dortmund, Dinamo Zagreb, Atalanta and Aston Villa. Asim, what do you make of the draw? I can see a big smile there.
It's funny because obviously prior to the draw you always kind of look at the options and make your choices of who you'd like to get, and I think it's safe to say for a lot of Celtic fans you could barely have handpicked a more favourable draw, barring Aston Villa from the pot 4 teams, who are probably one of the best pot 4 teams. Everything else we pretty much avoided all the big hitters, and you know, in the past maybe you've looked for some glamour ties, but I think given where Celtic are in Europe at the moment and our struggles in recent seasons, I think we all just wanted a draw where we felt we could compete and winnable ties. And I think you look at some of those home fixtures, and then you add the glamour of going to Dortmund. It's a team that I've not seen Celtic play in my lifetime, so it's something new. It's an iconic stadium. It'll be a good away trip. But more importantly, I think you look at the draw and you feel that, you know, we've got a right good chance if we, you know, strengthen the squad today, hopefully, as we all want to. Given how we've started the season, you just feel a bit more confident this year going into the Champions League with the new format. So yeah, a lot to look forward to. But yeah, I kind of mentioned it earlier. I think out of all the teams in the Champions League, we've probably got the most favourable set of 8 fixtures.
Are you able to pick a game or games that you're most excited about?
I try to get away on a couple of trips each season, so I definitely have eyed up the Dortmund away one. You know, you hear about obviously the atmosphere over there, the yellow wall. It's a trip I've not made before. I've been to Germany, but not Dortmund. So that one, and then obviously the Villa game will be of a lot of intrigue as well, just to see how we match up. You know, we've not played an English side for quite a while. So I think that's a game that Brendan Rodgers and the Celtic team will relish, but even the fans, you know, it'll be a good trip down to Birmingham. But yeah, I think those two stand out. In terms of the home games, you know, there isn't a glamour game in there. It's, you know, Leipzig's probably the toughest one, but I think that's good. That's what we want. We want to have games where we feel we can aim for the points that will hopefully see us through to the next stage.
How confident are you of making the knockout stage?
I think again a lot will depend on how we strengthen that squad, and by all accounts, it's looking like we're going to get at least a couple in today. But prior to the draw, I would have said, look, it'll be a tough ask. You know, the new format requires you to finish in the top 24 to give yourselves an opportunity. If you finish between 9 and 24, you have the playoff. Looking at those set of fixtures, you know, I'm not going to be naive enough. We've not earned it in recent times in Europe to suddenly suggest these games are all, you know, games that we should be winning. But on paper, it's given us a right good opportunity. And yeah, I think if we strengthen in the right areas that we need to today, I think Brendan Rodgers and I think a lot of the Celtic fans will go into the campaign feeling there's a right good opportunity for the first time in a while that we can make it into the knockout rounds.
I love this, Iona, because I know in all those Celtic group chats yesterday, everybody's like, yes, because that is a banging draw. That is a banging draw, and you are like, we're getting out of this. But I love how it's all very cordial and
yeah.
I can say that because I'm not a Celtic fan. If I was a Celtic 100%. Fan and that was a draw,
it was. You know, I was watching it at Celtic Park along with some other Celtic fans and fan media, and one by one, you're looking at the different options, and you're like, we'll take that, and that's who we get drawn against, and you're just like, this could not go any better. You look at some of the other pot 3 teams, I think like Feyenoord and Red Star Belgrade, they've got some nightmare draws. So 100%, the group chats were flying. We're all full of confidence. We're all waiting to book our flights for away trips. But at the same time, I think there has to be a realisation that, we've not been great in Europe. We've not won games in the past where we all went into. You look at last season's draw, everyone looked at that as a favourable draw. And whilst we were close in a lot of games, we didn't have enough quality just to get the job done and get through. And I think that's where you look at the likes of some of the signings that we're hopefully going to make today, and you think, could that be the difference that will get us over the line this year? A lot still to happen, but 100%, Gemma, you're right. We are confident, and we're feeling pretty optimistic compared to previous seasons.
As I'm future CEO of Celtic, there you go.
I was also going to say, I suppose what you can take from that is the AI in your favour, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's about time though. The years gone by, and it would be Barcelona and AC Milan and Ajax, and I remember that, and we used to always curse the draw. I think, I'm all for this new AI system anyway, put it that way.
This season, certainly. Well, that is the thing. There is so much going on in Scottish football right now, but we can't go without discussing the first Old Firm game of the season, 12:30 at Celtic Park on Sunday afternoon. Joshua, how will Rangers fans be feeling going into this one?
Maybe not quite as confident as Celtic fans. How's that for diplomacy? I think similar to if Rangers were to get a good draw today and they were to get a couple of players, and maybe it raises the optimism levels, but they've not been good enough in this fixture to earn that optimism. I mean, the last time that Rangers really won a big Old Firm game in the league was almost 3 seasons ago. They have one in between then, but I'm talking about a game where something's riding on it, where the league is still open. Now, I think they've been close in a lot of those games, especially over the course of 2023, but they've not managed to get over the line. So I think there's a lot to prove. Listen, a result in this fixture on either end can swing narratives a lot, especially when one side is perceived to be an underdog. I think Rangers have been better in the last couple of weeks. You've been able to see a little bit more. We were speaking earlier with Gemma about what Hearts are trying to do. I think you're starting to see more of the type of football that Philippe Clement wants to play, getting some of his players in. But we're speaking at before 7 o'clock on transfer deadline day. They need to get a couple more players in before the close of play today. I think there's a lot for them to do, a lot to get right, because this Celtic squad know how to win this fixture. They have been better in the last couple of games. I think it's going to take a good performance, probably a good first half, to build some optimism. You never know in this fixture, and that record of not winning in 3 years in the league in a big game does have to end at some point. I think they'll have to show with a performance that is going to be this Sunday.
Well, talking about Philippe Clement, what sort of approach do you think he'll take on Sunday? Do you expect the lineup to be similar to the side that beat Ross County?
I think Robin Propper probably comes back into that team. You're most likely looking at a midfield of Dujon Sterling, Mohamed Diamandi and Connor Barron, which I think matches Celtic's energy. If you look at this fixture over the course of even just this calendar year, it's been the midfield that I think has been the most stark at points, and Rangers haven't dealt very well, especially with Callum McGregor at points. The key for how he approaches this game for me is how aggressive he is. I feel we've watched a lot of Old Firm games in Scottish football over the last couple of seasons where we know that when Celtic are, I think, afforded time in the opposition half, and when they're able to try and break a team down effectively, they can do that in an Old Firm game. And I think too often Rangers have been too passive to allow them to control games because of the quality that they then have in the kind of middle to final third areas of the pitch. So how high and how aggressive they are to meet Celtic, I think that'll be quite a dictating factor. And then what can they do in space? Again, last season we saw a lot of games where I think there was the potential for Rangers to maybe go and do something, but they didn't have players who thrived in those big spaces. Can that be different with the likes of Václav Černý? Maybe Cyril Dessers has started the season well. He's been up and down in this fixture, to say the least. So again, a lot to prove, and I think a lot for Philippe Clement to prove, because he's not got a big result in this fixture yet. And as everyone knows, even if circumstances have been against you, even if you've been working with a squad that maybe isn't quite aligned to what you want to do, you can't go that long without getting a big result in the Old Firm.
And that's the thing, Asim. We know that Brendan Rodgers is pretty confident with this fixture, isn't he, in terms of seasons gone by too?
Yeah, Gemma, you mentioned the word cordial earlier, so now that we're talking about this fixture, I could throw that one out the window. No, I'm kidding on. I think, I'd be lying if I said that as Celtic fans we're not going into this pretty confident. As you mentioned there, Iona, Brendan Rodgers, he's brilliant in this specific fixture. It's one he thrives off, and obviously the results speak for itself. Obviously, whilst being confident, we have to remember this time last year it was probably the other way around. We hadn't started the season pretty well. We had a bit of an injury crisis going into the first fixture at Ibrox. We were, overwhelmingly underdogs going into that game, and going into quite a few of the derby fixtures last year. Actually, I think Rangers went in as favourites. Yet we managed to pick out a result on the day. So we have to guard against complacency, but at the same time, you look at the mood between the two camps right now. Obviously, Rangers won last week 6-0 quite convincingly, but by and large, it's been a bit of a rocky start for them, and we've just been playing some of the best football we've played in quite a while. We've carried on from where we finished off last season, if not better. We're starting games really well, and as you say, you just have a trust in the manager and this group of players that they'll be able to get the result. You add to that I think ever since Rangers started playing funny business with the away allocation, that the results seem to have gone in Celtic's favour, where we've coped pretty well going to Ibrox without fans, whereas I think Rangers haven't really. I think other than a draw in maybe two seasons ago, Celtic have won all the other home games where there's not been away fans. So I think that's something where Rangers have struggled, and we'll hope to use that home advantage and to our favour again. But it's one of those games. It's about who turns up on the day. But if you're talking about form and just the kind of feeling right now amongst fans, I think we go into it with as much confidence as we have for quite a while, and hopefully that will be added today when we see a few more signings come in the door.
I was just going to ask you about signings. Are you excited at the prospect of some new faces? I know Celtic are on the verge of signing Arnie Engels.
Yeah, look, we've been slow up until this week. We had only signed obviously the two players that were on loan last year, Adam Ida and Bernardo, and then the two goalkeepers. So a lot of people were saying we hadn't really moved on from the last season's squad, but I think now we've got the left back in. Arnie Engels is exactly the kind of profile of player that we've been crying out for. I think obviously we sold Matt O'Reilly, who's going to be so hard to replace. But this is the type of signing that I think Celtic need to start making more of. It's getting a player for 1.5 million in Matt O'Reilly and selling him for 30. That's not going to happen all the time. It's a brilliant example of effective trading model that we sometimes have. But you have to start looking at a different level of transfers, and I think Engels, for 20 years old, is very highly rated. He's played a lot of football in Germany. I know Derek Gray, who watches a lot of German football, is said on social media as well that he expects him to do quite well in Scotland, and by all accounts is someone that's going to fit in and really enhance our levels. So yeah, excited about that. And then Austin Trusty is a centre back that we're looking to get in as well. So people are a bit unsure about him because he was part of that Sheffield United team last season, who obviously didn't do too good. But everyone. You have to judge everyone on their own merits, and hopefully he'll come in and strengthen the squad as well. So the thing is, I would hope to think there's still more to come. I don't think 2 is enough. I guess we'll find out throughout the day if that's the case.
Joshua, do you expect it to be a busy day on the transfer front for Rangers?
I think it needs to be, Iona. If you listen to what Philippe Clement said at the end of last week, he expected it to be more busy in terms of incomings than outgoings. It's been a complex window for Rangers, not been helped by the fact that they've struggled to shift players out. They've been trying to restructure the wages. They've been trying to bring down the average age of the squad, trying to move some players on who haven't wanted to leave. But with all that being said, the squad, can you say the squad is much stronger now than it was when it entered the window? I don't think so. You can say it maybe looks better in certain areas. Some exciting players like Chefty have been brought in, who I think is an upgrade on Barisic at left back. But collectively, you definitely need more going out the window. So I think it's going to be a busy day, and I think pretty plainly it needs to be a busy day for Rangers. Not just for the weekend, but for the fact that it's a long season ahead, and I think the squad, he needs more tools at his disposal if he's going to go and make something out of this season.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. That is all we've got time for. Thank you to Gemma Fay, Joshua Barrie and Asim Rabbani. And thank you also for listening. Now remember, Sports Sound on BBC Radio Scotland will have all the live action across the weekend, and Sports Scene will bring you the highlights on Saturday, Sunday and Monday evenings. And don't forget our transfer window special episode. That'll be out tomorrow morning. Just follow or subscribe to the Scottish Football Podcast wherever you listen, so you don't miss out. A huge day in Scottish football. We will be back tomorrow morning.
This is the shocking moment English football has been dreading.
My name is Moses Swabu, and I used to be a professional footballer, but then I got in deep with organised crime and became a match fixer operating in the English League.
A match-fixing investigator has highlighted 2 matches he says appear to have suspicious betting patterns.
How honest are you going to be with me?
This is 100%. Join me for Sports Strangest Crimes presents Confessions of a Match Fixer. Listen on BBC Sounds.